And then I'm going to walk you through the process of designing a unique grill that's suited just for you. So, without further ado, let's get ourselves some impression material. We want about 2 scoops of this stuff. Fantastic. Nice level scoops, not too compact, and that gives you the best chances of mixing this up in a good way. You measure out about 2 scoopfuls on your measuring jug and pop that in here. If you're using an at-home impression kit, you're more likely to be using a material called polyvinyl siloxane, which has slightly different properties than alginate. Let's get this in the tray as quickly as we can. And pop it in the patient's mouth. Mmm. Mmm. Mm-hmm. 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 Mmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we have a perfect impression. There we go. Nice and accurate with all the teeth, all the details as required. Perfect. Now that we're done with this, what we can do is we can move on to casting it up. And I'll show you that in our lab downstairs.
Moments later.
All right, now that we've got our impression ready, probably a fresh pair of gloves, we go back or down or to our investment lab, where what we're going to do is we're going to take our impression and we're going to fill it with some plaster of Paris, and I'll show you how to do that. So it's yet another powder that we're going to play with, okay, without spilling it. There we go. What we want to do here is we just want to fill that with enough water. And you've got a fair while to play with this. So you grab your cast, you need a little shaking top. So this table essentially allows you to change the frequency of the vibrations and the intensity. And this is how you're going to remove all the bubbles. And that flows in really nicely once your teeth are all covered. The rest is again not as critical. And that is the correct way of pouring plaster of Paris into an impression. Everything's set, and this is going to take about a half an hour to properly set. We don't really want to touch it in the meantime. So we'll see you again in half an hour.
Few inches later.
You're gonna need yourself a little priming tool, and I always recommend being gentle around here, because half an hour, I mean, we're trying to make this video, so we're kind of doing everything on the minimum amount of time just to get things over and done with, but half an hour sometimes isn't enough. So you probably are better off leaving for an hour, but you're just trying to pry out just underneath here, making sure everything kind of loosens up a little bit. Well, there we go. Now we just need to remove that excess material. Whoa! So yeah, lots of noise. But essentially we're just putting on the water, make sure it's all running nicely. And here we go. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Making sure that we can see the teeth, didn't nick our fingers or get ourselves pulled into this spinning machine. You want to leave yourself as much gums as you can. Sometimes we trim this model up further, but that's absolutely fine. And as long as you've got a couple of surfaces for stability when you're working on this, that's absolutely perfect. So if there's any little air blows, bubbles, you can also correct that later on. But realistically, that's pretty darn good. And now you might want to wash it, make sure it's really nice and clean, and that's it. So yeah, there we go. Beautiful teeth.
A few moments later.
We've got our cast in plaster of Paris, and that's as solid as we needed, and as they mentioned, stable as well. So there it is. And in order to get our hands, keep them nice and clean and avoid sort of problems with dry skin, it's best, as always, to keep a pair of gloves on. Now, in terms of materials that we're going to need, we're going to need some wax, and this is a green modeling wax for making jewelry. So it's quite stiff. This stuff you can actually turn on a lathe, and on top of that, it polishes up really nicely, and you can add a ton of detail to it. So it's not too soft, not too hard. Perfect for this particular use. We'll need some tools. All of these stainless steel, I believe, which is perfectly fine. This one over here in particular is used for applying, removing, and softening wax. This is your wax knife. Very much key to all of this. This we will be heating up quite often. And the rest of them are for making particular patterns and designs. Some of them are two-sided. Most of them are two-sided to give you various different stamps and angles to carve. So highly recommended. And then the last thing that we need is either one of these or a Bunsen burner. So something to really heat up the wax knife. And now I like to wet the model first, just around where we're going to be placing the wax, as it prevents the wax from sticking too much. And then we can turn our tool over here on. An induction heater is literally just a couple of seconds, and it should be enough, and then we can start applying little by little. But no, that's looking absolutely fine. So I'm gonna again wet my model, keep it moist. Anyway,